Good evening and welcome to the April 29th meeting of Glendale City Council. May we have roll call, please?
Council members: Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Sinanian.
Here. Today's flag salute will be led by Councilmember R. Najarian.
Please rise and join me in the flag salute. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. The month of April holds great significance for many communities and cultures. It often is when we celebrate Easter or Passover, remember the martyrs of the Armenian genocide and other genocides, and raise awareness about sexual assault. While remembering the victims of assault and planned genocides, let us remember the words of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who spoke such undeniable truth when he said, quote, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." Let us remember that in this season of spring, one of rebirth and renewal, while the earth is recreated and replenished, that we as stewards of this planet and its denizens have an obligation to live life by loving each other and working towards a more harmonious society. We pray that we continue to be blessed by all the tools that we have that are required to make this goal a reality. We pray that our leaders are given the wisdom to continue to guide us along the path of love, compassion, and respect for our neighbors in this city and throughout the world. We pray for this and an end to all violence in the world, whether by individuals or governments, and for the continued prosperity of our jewel city. Amen.
Amen. May we have the report, please?
The agenda for the April 29, 2014 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, April 24th, 2014 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Yes. May we have, what's next on the agenda?
Under presentation and appointments at 3A is the agenda preview for the meetings of Tuesday, May 6, 2014.
Yes. Ms. Beers?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, on May 6th, we do have a special meeting of the Glendale City Council to commence at 9 p.m. Director of Administrative Services Finance. This is regarding our budget study session for fiscal year 2014-15, and we will cover council priorities, summary of appropriations, and review of departmental budgets. That afternoon, for the Housing Authority to commence at 3 p.m., we have no business agenda items. We do have a special meeting of the successor agency, and that's Director of Economic Development, and it's regarding the Alex Theater carpet replacement project. Also that afternoon, we have a special meeting of the Glendale City Council. One item, Director of Economic Development, and this is formation of the Glendale Economic Development Corporation. For the Glendale City Council meeting that evening to commence at 6 p.m., we have a number of consent items. Director of Public Works, conditional vacation of a portion of the first alley westerly of Brand Boulevard, north of Lexington, and this is in connection with the mixed-use project, and it's located at 409 through 413 North Brand Boulevard. Next, we have Director of Public Works. This is regarding the 2013-14 slurry seal and pavement repair program. Maintenance, next item, we have Director of Public Works, maintenance of traffic signal at Broadway and Brazil Railroad Crossing. Fire Chief, this is regarding pre-employment background investigation services. General Manager of Glendale Water and Power, this is regarding the Glendale Water and Power Energy Trading and Risk Management System implementation. And lastly, on consent, we have Director of Library Arts and Culture, and this is regarding consultant for the Signature Art event as prepared and recommended for approval by the Arts and Culture Commission. And lastly, we have one item under action items. This is Fire Chief, and this is regarding the purchase of next generation 911 phone consoles for the Verdugo Fire Communications Center. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Beers. What's next, Mr. Clerk?
Next item at 3B is a proclamation designating the week of May 4th through the 10th, 2014 as Municipal Clerk's Week.
All right, so I'm going to read the text of the proclamation and ask that Councilmember Najarian present the proclamation. Whereas the office of the Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants and provides a professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, And whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meeting of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Now, therefore, I, Zara Sinanian, Mayor of the City of Glendale, proclaim the week of May 4th through May 10th, 2014 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our Municipal Clerk, Artashes Kasakian, and to all the employees of City Clerk's Office for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Mr. Kasakian, I'm sure you have some words that you'd like to share with us.
Mayor Sinanian, on behalf of myself and my staff, I wish to thank you and the council for this recognition. I should mention that before you think that the individuals in the city clerk's office are of only one gender, some of our staff could not appear today before us due to family obligations and other engagements. I want to introduce, we have Leo Zalian, Michael Dunn, Arama Jemian. Not with us this evening are Judy Herwig, Karen Cruz, Mary Velasquez. As many of you already know, our office is an important link to our public to access City Hall. Our offices act as a secretary to this body and ensures that the public is aware of the actions that you hear decide every Tuesday evening. We take great pride in our work to help the public better understand how their government works and to help them access the information they need in order to make informed decisions during elections and throughout the year. To take advantage of this brief few moments while we are in the spotlight, we prefer to remain, as you know, as support staff, oftentimes behind the scenes, making sure that the meetings are run smoothly, elections are run smoothly, and people have the information that they need when they need it. We want to take a few moments and say that we are proud to announce a program that we are launching this coming week whereby we are distributing door hangers to any community groups who wish to help us get the word out about the upcoming June 3rd, 2014 special municipal election that will be taking place. As many of you already know, and some watching in TV land may not know, there will be an election for one council seat currently held by Councilmember Frank Quintero and only one council seat. And we are consolidating that election with the state primary. This is something that has not been done, at least during my tenure of 9+ years here. So we want to make sure that our Glendale residents are aware of that. And to that effect, we are going to be distributing these door hangers. Any community groups that are interested in helping us out, we ask that they contact our office at 818-548-4000. They can ask either for Leo or anyone actually really on the staff and let them know that they're interested in the door hanger, the Get Out the Vote GOTV door hanger program, and we'd be happy to have their help. So with that, again, we want to thank you and remind everyone that it's important for them to vote.
Thank you. And will we have a ballot measure on the ballot regarding
There's
the charter
absolutely,
amendment?
yes, there's a charter amendment as well. It is for one council seat and a charter amendment.
Thank you.
Mr. Kasakian, I'd like to present you the proclamation, although it leaves out two important roles that you play in the city, and that is the poet laureate and philosopher-in-chief at the beginning of every meeting. So, congratulations. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Kasakian.
Item C is a proclamation designating the month of May 2014 as Historic Preservation Month.
And we have some friends from the Historic Preservation Society present. Can we ask them to come forward, please? And we have speaking cards from Lauren of Artanian and Greg Grammer, and take in that order. Hi, Lauren.
Should I go before you?
Sure.
Read.
Go before,
Okay.
and then Councilmember Laura Friedman will present you with the proclamation after I read it.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Sinanian, members of the council and staff, my name is Lorna Vartanian, and I am chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm honored to be here today to accept this proclamation on behalf of the HPC and in recognition of all of the volunteers and organizations throughout the city who work tirelessly to protect and preserve the city's historic resources. A few of those people are here, and I'm just going to take a moment to introduce. I'm not sure that everyone is going to speak. So my colleague Mike Morgan from the HPC, also Commissioner Desiree Shire from the HPC, Commissioner Arlene Vidor did not come up. Greg Grammer, who is president of the Glendale Historical Society, Sean Bursell, who is executive director of the Historical Society, our one and only Jay Platt, and I'm sorry.
I'm Joanne Sadler, the president of the Historical Society.
Oh, okay, terrific. You're here instead of Mike Lawler, so thank you for coming. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. That was embarrassing. Okay, so the HPC had another productive year in 2013. We added 8 properties to our historic register, and we added the Municipal Services Building as our 100th landmark out of 104 total, which we have on the register today. Also, this year, as part of Historic Preservation Month, the HPC, in partnership with the Glendale Historical Society, will be hosting a Civic Center walking tour on May 10th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Anybody who would like to attend should come to the Municipal Services Building Plaza at 10 a.m. At 12 noon, there'll be a presentation of the plaque designating the Municipal Services Building as the 100th landmark. Yes, it is it's a free event. When participants come to the plaza, they'll be given a beautiful brochure, which the city and the Historical Society have worked very hard to put together. There will be 21 important buildings to visit, buildings that are pertinent to our city's history. And there will also be a display at the Central Library of all of our resources, I believe, currently on the register. It's really a wonderful three-dimensional display that's put together by city staff. And just want to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. I also just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you, the City Council, for your continued support of historic preservation. And of course, I wanted to thank Jay Platt and his staff for continuing to guide us and help us with this process. And my time is up. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Grammer, who can tell us about some other events coming up in Historic Preservation Month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sinanian and members of the City Council. I'll be really brief. We have 2 additional events coming up in May to celebrate Historic Preservation Month. The first one is on May 4th. It's called Shattering the Myths of Window Replacement, and it will be a presentation on window maintenance and repair and how preserving vintage wood and steel windows is not only important from a preservation perspective, but also is less expensive, better for the environment, and preserves home values. And that will be held on Sunday, May 4th at 1 o'clock in front of the Doctor's House Museum at Brand Park, and that is free and open to the public. And then the next event will be on May 21st. It's called Landmark This Glendale, and it is a workshop on how to nominate your property to the Glendale Register of Historic Resources. The Glendale Historical Society will be reaching out to owners of potentially historic buildings, but certainly anyone who is watching this and has a historic property and is interested in placing their property on the historic register, they're certainly invited and encouraged to come. That's on Wednesday, May 21st at 7 p.m. and will be held at the historic Seeley's building on Brand Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for the work that you do in terms of preserving the Glendale's historic nature. I think we all are beneficiaries of a certain look that Glendale has. We expect it to look a certain way, and it's important that there are vigilant people out there to make sure that that special architectural nature that Glendale enjoys, different neighborhoods, different looks, remains intact. And I think, and I'm not sure if Ms. Vartanian mentioned this, one other success for all Friends of Historic preservation was the district that the council approved just less than a month ago, and also the RFQ that we approved today for Rockhaven. I think it's definitely a positive. It's a move forward. It's a natural progression, which we started today in those terms. So in recognition of the hard work that you do and the important work that you do, there's a proclamation I'd like to read for you. And it states, whereas the National Historic Preservation Act, adopted by the United States Congress and signed by the President on October 15, 1966, declared that the historical and cultural foundations of the nation be preserved as a living part of the community life and development in order to give a sense of orientation to the American people. And whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of Glendale's history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of heritage that have shaped us as people, and whereas befitting Glendale's commitment to safeguarding and showcasing its historic properties, New Age of Preservation, Embark, Inspire, Engage is the theme of National Preservation Month 2014, which is co-sponsored by the Historic Preservation Commission, the Glendale Historical Society, the Historical Society of La Crescenta Valley, and National Trust for Historic Preservation. Now, therefore, I, Zara Sinanian, Mayor of City of Glendale, hereby proclaim the month of May 2014 as Historic Preservation Month in Glendale, and urge all citizens to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance.
I'm very happy to present this to you, my friends, people that I've worked with for a long time. As many of you know, I got into politics really through historic preservation. It's kind of my first passion that got me into this whole business. So I really appreciate what you do because I know how much work it is, and how much time it takes, and how much passion. And all of you are hard workers, and you are passionate, and you care about the history of the city, and I appreciate that so much. So I'm very proud to present this to all of you, and Lorna's taking it, so thank you so much.
Everybody can be here. I just wanted to say I was remiss to leave out the Brockmont Park Historic District, which is the 6th one in the city. And thank you, Mayor, for the proclamation.
Absolutely. Thank you. What's next, Mr. Clerk?
Item D is nomination assignment for Civil Service Commission to reappoint or replace Sam Manukian, and this will be your appointment.
Yes.
Councilmember.
And this is
Mayor
just
Sinanian. This is just an announcement.
Just an announcement. Thank you.
The nomination assignments. And E is also a nomination assignment for the Civil Service Commission to replace Commissioner Ara Hatamian, who is not seeking reappointment. This is the assignment of Councilmember Weaver. Next
Great.
item is City Council and staff comments.
Yes. Ms. Friedman?
Yes, I would like to ask Council to agendize us passing a resolution on behalf of an incident that happened during the Vietnam War, particularly regarding a former Glendale resident named Jim Kerr, who grew up in Glendale on Lexington Drive and Kenneth Road. He attended Columbus Toll and Hoover High and graduated in 1968. He and 73 other Americans were killed during the Vietnam War on June 3rd, 1969, aboard the USS Frank Evans. And because of politics at the time, these 74 soldiers were not included in the Vietnam Memorial in Washington. There is a movement to have those names added. It's my understanding that a similar resolution has been passed by the state of California in Sacramento, and given that Mr. Kerr was a Glendale resident, one of our own, I would like us to agendize, as soon as possible, passing a resolution, and we can look at the language they use in Sacramento, urging the federal government to include these 74 soldiers on the memorial.
May we hear why they were not included? What the
My
politics
understanding
was?
is, and we'll get more information, but my understanding was that there were war exercises being done, and there was a horrible accident. The boat was rammed by another boat. The soldiers were killed, but the War Department didn't want to show those casualties because it would have added to the casualties of the Vietnam War. And I have the information, and we can certainly present it more formally when this comes back. But really, it was politics at the time. The only reason they were doing these exercises was because of the Vietnam War. So they were active soldiers who were killed on duty.
Seconded. Okay, great. Any other?
Yes, well,
Go ahead.
I'm sure that everyone will mention it, but last week was our week of remembrance. There were many powerful and moving memorials and events that took place around Glendale and actually around the region. I was able to attend, certainly the one at the Alex, and the United Young Armenians had a candlelight vigil the night before. And it's a week that, as Glendalians, we should all be very proud of, because it recognizes the first genocide in the 20th century, a very important part of modern history, and reminds people about genocides in general, about man's inhumanity to man, and acts as a living reminder to people that this can happen really anywhere at any time, and that we all need to be vigilant. This is something that's not always taught to children in schools, and we make it a point to educate young people in Glendale through this activity, as well as to commemorate the relatives of many of our residents. And it's something that's very moving and educational, and if you haven't attended any of those events, I recommend them highly next year. This is now the 100th year anniversary of the genocide, and next year I think that the events will be, here in Glendale will be even more, bigger and sort of more spectacular, and I hope that the whole community gets together and attends next year. But I want to thank all of the members of the committee. I know Mr. Najarian, Mr. Quintero, I don't know who else was on the committee. I can't name all of the people, but they were the committee that organized all of these events, which I know is a tremendous amount of work and many, many meetings. So I want to thank them on behalf of the community. Oh, and next week I won't be here for the council meeting because it is the yearly sort of giant water conference they have in California. And as Glendale's representative to the board of the Metropolitan Water District, in the past I've not gone to this conference, but given the crisis situation we're at with water this year, I think it's important that I go. And it's worth missing the council meeting, and I'm told that anything very important will be moved to when I can be there. So you don't have to tune in next week. Sorry? I will be here for the budget meeting in the morning because that's something that's very important. But otherwise, I'll be off in the evening and heading to that conference, and hopefully we can find some solutions. This will be people involved in water from all around the state, and we need to form consensus, and this might be a step in getting the state a little closer to some consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian?
Thank you. I do have a very exciting announcement to make, and Los Angeles Union Station is turning 75 years old this Saturday. And in a celebration of its birthday, there are numerous exciting activities going on, the best of which are free train rides from the Glendale station to Los Angeles Union Station and back again. So you can get on the Metrolink train. They'll be running every hour from 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock, and then every hour and a half after that. So you can hang out downtown till about 6:30, if I'm not mistaken, and catch a Metrolink train back. Once you're at the Union Station, there will be music, bands, food, games for children. There will be a display of historic trains on the platforms. And once you're downtown, it would be a great opportunity for you to jump on the Red Line, jump on the Blue Line, perhaps go to visit Long Beach, see the museums and Exposition Park on the Expo Line, or just hang out downtown. You're right there near Chinatown and Olvera Street. And folks from the downtown area, I've encouraged to come to Glendale. So those folks that do come from downtown to Glendale, we'll have a fleet of our Beeline buses ready to take them to the Brand Central downtown area where they can enjoy our cuisine and shopping and entertainment and great things going on. So it's all free. It's a great day, a great way to spend the day with the family. It starts at the Glendale Historic Train Station, where there will also be tours given and some historical background. Jump on the train, go downtown, have fun, and then explore downtown, or even go a little bit further on the Metro Rail system that exists right from Union Station. It's the central hub of all the transportation in the region. So it's a great day. It's National Train Day as well. And I will be there, and I'll be looking for any Glendale residents that decide to take the train down to Union Station.
Can you give us the date and times again? Can't really see it on that.
So it's this Saturday, and it starts, the trains start at 11 a.m., and it'll take you right down. And Glendale is the only city, by the way, that gets this free train ride. We have to pull some strings to make that happen. But once you get to Union Station, that's where the activities are, and there will be return trips every hour from 11 o'clock till 3, and then every hour and a half from then on. So a great way to spend the day. It's free, and should be a lot of fun for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Najarian. Yes, Mr. Weaver?
I was just thinking that the train station turns 75 in March. I turned 75 in July. Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz both came out in 1939. Mine will be the least remembered of all of them. I don't know what my family has in store for me. It's kind of odd saying 3/4 of a century old, but well, it only comes around once, so we'll see what happens. I read something in the Glendale News Press that disturbed me quite a bit, and I wondered if staff could kind of enlighten the public into the reality of it. That involves the water quality, that the state has come down and said we're contaminated in the city, which I know is not true. And I was wondering if Mr. Cho and Mr. Zern, if you could straighten out the news press and the city of Glendale residents.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there was a report initially in the Times and then picked up by the news press. One of the confusing aspects of this is you have two state agencies. You have the California Environmental Protection Agency that puts out a certain standards for water, which are called public health goals. Goals, just that. Things that they'd like to see you strive to achieve. They're unenforceable. In many cases, they set those goals at 0, which is really nice. I mean, there's a lot of things I think we'd like to have at 0, including air contaminants and other things. On the other hand, the California Department of Public Health sets the enforceable standards for water. These are called the maximum contaminant levels. Those are what we have to meet. Those are what we do meet. We meet those every single day, and every single day of every single year. And we report every year on our efficiencies in meeting those. In most cases, not only do we meet what the MCL is, we're far below it. In some cases, we do meet the current public health goals. In others, we don't. And we continue to strive to get there. But by no means have we ever been in jeopardy of not meeting the MCLs. Our water is safe, and it is meets or exceeds the standards set by the state of California. That also includes federal EPA standards as well.
Well, the colored map that you see that shows it, I assume that's because it's talking about unblended water.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Weaver, that was one of the things, if you saw the quote I had, which was we were a little confused and it was a bit vague, is that they showed those maps which would indicate geographic locations of where water is located. Well, we took that to mean that is untreated well water. It's well water that's still in the ground, untreated. Well, obviously, when we withdraw that water, no matter where it's from, it gets treated, number one, if it requires treating. And then by just virtue of the fact that we store the water together with MWD water, it gets blended.
And I'm told that our water's more pure than bottled water. Is that a true statement?
They will tell you that because bottled water isn't regulated to the degree that our water, both that we produce locally, which is about 30%, and that which we purchase from MWD, which is about 70%, and MWD meets and exceeds all those standards as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Mr. Quintero?
Yeah, on that subject, I think it's also the public needs to understand there's a plume of contaminants from the aerospace industry and other industrial uses that start in the northern and western San Fernando Valley, literally stretch all the way through downtown Los Angeles and on to Long Beach. So it's not like this little island called Glendale is the only city that has to deal with these issues. I also attended the numerous genocide committee, or rather genocide memorial commemoration events. And I do want to thank the committee very much. They did an excellent job. The speaker this year was superb in terms of his analysis of the orphans and something called Near East Relief, which is basically an American organization that teamed with countries throughout the world. It was a great and informative presentation. Now, I was the co-chair, but unlike Mr. Najarian, I missed a few meetings. He was there for all the meetings, so he had to deal with so many of the committee issues. So I want to thank Mr. Najarian for the hard work that he did on the committee this year. Then I'd like to read a statement following the closed session of the mayor and 3 council members. I'd like to agendize a discussion of Councilmember Weaver's comments in the Glendale News Press. That would be for next week.
I'll support that.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm just going to ask everyone to bear with me. We've been dark for evening meetings for 2 weeks. I want to make sure that you know that just because we haven't met in the evening doesn't mean that we haven't been working and the staff hasn't been working. So I'll go through some events that I attended along with my fellow council members, some of them by myself. On April 11th, I had the opportunity to attend the Center for Asian Americans United for Self-Empowerment annual dinner. It's actually the 22nd annual dinner, and it was really an exciting event because it not only highlighted the work done by this organization in terms of self-empowerment for Asian Americans, but also showed the kind of impact that Asian Americans have had in the United States in general and Southern California in particular. On April 12th, Glendale revived its traditional spring egg extravaganza. In essence, it's a fun Passover, Easter egg hunt / fun and games. So a lot of people showed up with their children. I think good times were had by all. I encourage next year more participation by our residents, and I'm certainly hoping that we will bring this tradition back for good. On April 17th, our city held its pedestrian safety workshop organized by our police department, and we had a really nice cross-section of the community present there, people who fundamentally care and are concerned with traffic safety in Glendale and fully realize how serious the situation is. Our police was well represented, and in the future, in the next several weeks, I'll ask our police chief to give us a report of how our efforts to confront this problem are progressing and what tangible steps we're taking to make sure that the situation improves for the better. And, of course, thank you to the staff for organizing this event on such short notice. On April 25th, Councilmember Quintero and I were present at the Ascensia's new headquarters grand opening celebration. It was a wonderful event because I don't know how much detail I need to give you as far as how important the work Ascensia does in the city of Glendale, how closely it cooperates with the city of Glendale, specifically our CDBG department, and how generous the people who donate to that organization are. So I want to, again, commend Jess Duran and Moises Carrillo for the great work that they do, and the whole family that is so instrumental in providing funding for the services that Ascensia provides, services that otherwise would go unfilled because we all know how dire the financial situation is when it comes to social services being provided in the city of Glendale. On April 27th, Glendale Adventist had its gala, and I had the good fortune of attending that. Denise Miller is here. She was also there. April 28th, which was yesterday, we had a special guest from Uganda, from Kampala, a young lady, an equivalent of what would be a junior in high school. who has grown up in the worst imaginable slums of Kampala, a lady named Fiona Mutasi, who is a chess prodigy. She's basically brought herself up through the game of chess. She's become a competitive chess player, and as a result is having some significant successes in life. And in fact, Disney is preparing a motion picture featuring her life story. And she was a guest at Clark Magnet High School in Glendale. And the reason they were at Clark is because Clark is a school that has a large cadre of aspiring and actual chess players. And in fact, Clark has given us a woman grandmaster, a lady named Tatev Abrahamian, who is grandmaster is the basically, that's it. There's nothing above that in the sport of chess. She's a giant in the sport of chess. And Clark and Tatev wanted to show their appreciation for Fiona's life story. And check it out. If you just type in Google Fiona Mutesi, you will see how inspiring her story is. So in recognition of her achievements, in recognition of Glendale's sort of important role that it plays in chess in the United States, I did declare yesterday Chess Day for the city of Glendale. I hope people like that. I think chess is a great game, great intellectual game, and is a credit to all of us. And finally, yesterday, Glendale Memorial had its annual Golf Classic dinner, and the honoree of the dinner was our former mayor, Sheldon Baker. Really nice event, well attended. I think they raised a lot of funds also for the hospital. In terms of the April 24th Armenian Genocide and Man's Inhumanity to Man commemorative events, I think my colleagues enumerated a lot of them. I do want to mention a couple that weren't mentioned and are really special because the city of Glendale played a key role in it. One being the Night of Poetry, a really special way to confront the wounds created by genocide. And that was right here outside at Parcher Plaza. And we had high school students, boys and girls, come out and recite poetry that they authored and express their feelings about the loss and the anger, the hurt, whatever you want to call it, whatever those feelings happen to be, through art, through poetry. It was really inspiring to see the talent and see how productive and constructive poetry can be. And finally, I do want to thank my colleagues Frank Quintero and Aaron Najarian for co-chairing that committee. I think you did a fantastic job. And Dan Bell, I know he was instrumental in making everything click, so thank you, Dan. And indeed, next year, well, this year now, we've kicked off the 100th anniversary at this point, and those efforts will be redoubled, I assure you. That's it. Thank you. What's next, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Mayor and Council, next item is the consent calendar following a routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
Do we have a motion?
Move the consent calendar.
Second.
Can we have roll call, please?
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Sinani.
Yes. Next, please.
Item 6 is oral communications. This is a portion normally for practice for the 3-minute community event announcements.
And we have actually several speakers. We'll start with Sharon Townsend. And Stephen Bach will be next. I hope I didn't mispronounce that name.
Hi, Mayor Sinani, and congratulations. City Council and staff. In the past 3 decades, governments at all levels in the United States have increased their involvement with nonprofit organizations. You, our local government, must continually confront the challenge of providing more and better service while operating within fiscal constraints. Many of our nonprofits share your commitment to serving the public and improving our community. Our overlapping interests and concerns provide us the ability to work together, to support each other, and to learn from one another. No local government has all the power, resources, or authority it takes to solve many of the community problems, but you have within your border so many nonprofits that can put additional resources, expertise, and energy into addressing these problems. Essentia helps the homeless population, Salvation Army the hungry, YWCA and Door of Hope domestic violence, and Glendale Healthy Kids health care for the underserved population. I'm so pleased with the increasing partnership to jointly develop and implement the programs, such as the city's participation on the Nonprofit Executive Coalition, and our own city's manager, real dedication and deeply felt concern for our area's nonprofits. In leading a nonprofit organization, none of us can and ever should be satisfied with doing adequately. We have to do exceptionally well. Because our agency is committed to a cause, we have to take our roles seriously and not ourselves seriously. Leadership is also an example, and you as leaders are visible, incredibly visible. You have expectations to fill, and you stand for the organization. Each of you on this city council and on our city government are visible, incredibly visible. Your presence at events, especially those nonprofits, providing the basic social services for its citizens does matter. It has made a difference, and it has sent messages to our citizens that you do care about what we're doing. I had dinner with Artie and our mayor on Saturday night, dinner with the mayor on Sunday night, and I'm sure we'll see each other at a bunch more events this week. All of us as public servants, as Peter Drucker stated, should keep our eyes on the task, not on ourselves. The task matters, and we are but servants. Tomorrow, Glendale Healthy Kids is hosting their 14th annual Taste of Downtown Glendale. From 5:30 to 8:30, you can sample nearly 50 food and beverage providers. Tickets can be purchased at the Alex Theater, online tonight, or in person. And 96% of the profits will directly benefit our client programs and services. Many of our nonprofit leaders are strong and forceful advocates for our mission, but we do need your help in mobilizing the community backers in support of our organizations. Please attend. Your presence matters, and it matters to the nearly 4,000 children that we're able to provide programs and services to. Margaret Thatcher stated it used to be about trying to do something. Now it's about trying to be someone. Please help me in being someone that wants to do something. Your visibility counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. So once again, tomorrow from 5:30 to 8:30. And the next speaker is Stephen Bach. Is that, I'm sorry, my
Clearly, I don't come here often enough. My name is Stephen, Honorable Mayor, members of the council, staff. My name is...
That's your cue.
Sorry. Mine's on vibrate. My name is Stephen Bache. I'm with the Rotary Club of Glendale, and I'm give you a few words on the Jewel City Fun and Fitness Ride. But I've got two members of our beneficiaries to introduce themselves.
Good evening. I'm Karina Gregorian with the Glendale Youth Alliance.
Good evening. I'm Savada Himelians with Home at Men Glendale, our chapter.
Thanks very much. I'm here to talk about the Jewel City Fun and Fitness Ride. It will be at Verdugo Park, Sunday, May 18th, starting at 7 a.m. We have 3 rides. For those that are ambitious enough, we have a 45-mile ride, which I will be making. I would be delighted to have any of you that are so inclined. I think I finished last year, so I enjoy the company. There's a fun and fitness ride, which is about 24 miles. It's the easier portion of the longer ride. And then we have a family ride for parents and their young children at 10:30. On behalf of the Rotary Clubs of Glendale, Walk by Glendale, and myself, I'd like to invite any and all of you to attend. And this is a charity ride, and you've met a couple of the beneficiaries. The Glendale YMCA is another beneficiary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bache.
Thank you.
And next we have Dr. Stella Bagdasarian from Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry.
Good evening, Mayor Sinanian, honorable council members, and staff. My name is Dr. Stella Bagdasarian, and I'm here with my fellow volunteers and our young walk participant on behalf of Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak with you regarding the topic that we have come across at some point in our lives, either directly or indirectly, which is cancer. The type of cancer that our organization deals with is leukemia and other blood cancers. Each year, more than 30,000 patients are diagnosed with leukemia, and according to National Health Institute and our recent experience, we have seen an increase in the number of patients diagnosed with this disease. For many, their only chance of survival is to have a stem cell bone marrow transplant from a compatible donor. Only 30% of the patients find a match within their family members. The rest, 70%, have to find their matches amongst unrelated existing registries. For a minority group such as Hispanics, Armenians, Jews, this percentage is higher because there are less minority donor registered in marrow donor registries. To address this problem, nearly 15 years ago, we established Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry, a nonprofit independent organization. The mission of our organization is to find that compatible match donor for our patients, Armenians and non-Armenians, who are suffering from blood-related diseases, and their last hope of survival is to have a bone marrow or stem cell transplant from a genetically matched compatible donor. Since then, I am glad to inform you that we have recruited over 25,000 donors. We are a full member of World Marrow Donor Worldwide and cooperative member of Armenian National Donor Program, expanding our scopes to help more patients in need. Through our yearly outreach programs such as Walkathon, we are trying to raise awareness within Glendale community, encouraging community members to participate in this life-saving cause. Our 9th annual Walk of Life Walkathon is going to be held on May, and I would like to ask Mrs. Sona Ashtian to give you the details of the walkathon, to which I would like to invite all of the council members and staff to take part in. Thank you for your time and support.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Sinanian and honorable council members and staff. My name is Sona Ashtian, and I am one of the members of Bone Marrow Donor Registry Walk of 2014. The walk will take place this Saturday, May the 3rd, at 9 o'clock. Registration will start, and the walk will be at 10 o'clock. The route starts from the Glendale Memorial Hospital. We will then walk down Central to the Armenian Embassy, which is located corner of Lexington and Central, then walk down Brand back to Glendale Memorial Hospital. I work for Providence High School in medical focus coordinator, and I am encouraged our students to participate in this great cause. So we also invite you and all the members to come to this important event. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be there. And next we have Tony Tartaglia. It says gas company, but he's obviously our college board member, and Marisol Espinoza. And you guys need 3 minutes each, or you guys?
But I'm going to wear a couple of hats, Mr. Mayor, city council members, leadership team, staff. Thank you for having us here today. First, I want to wear the hat of as a board member of the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation. As you know, this Sunday, May 3rd, is our 4th annual Verdugo 10K. And I encourage the community to come out. It's been growing steadily every year. We expect over 650 runners this year. It is a premier event in the county, and people look forward to it. And I encourage anyone and everyone to come, all ages, early in the morning and experience our beautiful Brand Park on Sunday. And if you're interested, you can go to runtheverdugos.com, and we'd be more than happy to have you attend. The other issue I'm here today is it's kind of sweet and sour. I have been your public affairs manager for the last 20 years. 1994, I came to Glendale, a younger man. But I'll have you know, for you, Mr. Zern, every morning I drink a full glass of Glendale water, and I feel great. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Keeps you alive. But I was blessed in December to get a promotion at the gas company, become the public affairs regional manager of our northern area. And in March last month, I hired a new public affairs manager for this area, and I wanted to introduce Marisol Espinosa to you. And she has many accomplishments in her own right, so I'd like to have her say a few words as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm very excited to be here, to be working in Glendale. As Tony mentioned, I just started about a month ago, so I am getting to know the community and as well as the gas company, but I look forward to working with all of you. And just a little bit about my background. I worked for the City of Los Angeles for about 10 years, most recently working for the former City Controller, managing her community relations. And I'm just very excited to be part of this company and excited to be a part of the Glendale community. So thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations to you both. Well deserved. Thank you. And we have Ms. Doris Tweed, another mainstay of the City of Glendale.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Ochoa, staff, and citizens. I'm here. My name's Doris Tweet, and I'm here on behalf of the Days of Verdugo Heritage Association to invite everyone to our Fiesta Cita. That's this Sunday, May 4th, and it will be held on the grounds of the Catalina Verdugo Adobe at 2211 Bonita Drive in Verdugo Woodlands. It's just south of Opeechee Way, west of Cañada, for the people who aren't familiar with it. It's a beautiful park, and many people in the area really don't know about it, but it's beautiful, and once you go there, you're going to want to return because it's very peaceful and lots of trees, and it's just a beautiful venue. The city has upgraded the park, and we have new benches and tables and new restrooms, so that'll make it much more convenient too. It'll be an open house between the hours of noon and 4 p.m., and we'll be serving a variety of Mexican dishes. Tours of the museum will be conducted throughout the afternoon. The Days of the Verdugos Association supports the museum at the Verdugo Adobe Museum, and the funds raised will be used for that purpose. Tickets are $25 for adults, $10 for children 6 to 12, and children 5 and under are free. Each ticket purchased will include a chance to win $100. And for reservations, you can call area code 818-248-7109. It's up on the board there. And those who have attended our Fiesta Citas in the past will notice it is a different venue. We've had it at the Casa Adobe de San Rafael in the past, but now we have moved it to the Verdugo Adobe, which is appropriate since we do support that. So we hope to see you all there.
Thank you. Another excellent event with an excellent purpose. And next speaker is Leon Mayer.
Good evening, Mayor Sinanian, members of the council and staff. My name is Leon Mayer. I'm primarily here for the Friends of the Library. But before I go into my discussion about our upcoming event, I want to remind everybody and thank the Armenian community for remembering that Sunday was Holocaust Remembrance Day. Now, we're having an event at the library. It should be up there on the board at some point while I'm talking. And the name of the book we're having is The Crusades of Cesar Chavez, and the author is, Miriam Powell. Before I talk about Cesar Chavez, I want to talk to you about Miriam Powell. Miriam Powell is she's a Pulitzer Prize winner. She's won 2 Pulitzer Prize during the time that she's been a editor and reporter for the Los Angeles Times and another magazine. And she is well known, and she is so well known that on April 13th, she was at the USC Festival of Books, and she appeared at the Boulevard Auditorium, and guess what she talked about? The Crusades of Cesar Chavez. So rather than say anything more about Miriam Powell, you'll hear more about her later, I'd like to talk a little bit about Cesar Chavez. So, I'll just take a couple of minutes to highlight things about his life. He was born in 1927 and died in 1996, I believe. He was 66 years old when he died. And he was born in Arizona to a family who had been in its country for a couple of generations. And he became the most well-known Mexican person in the country. He started the Farm Workers Union. The United Farm Workers Union was started in 1962 when Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and Gilbert Padilla started a union called the National Farm Workers Association. And what they did, and what Cesar Chavez did, is he organized the immigrant fruit workers all over the country, and then that in turn the National Farm Workers Association later became the United Farm Workers Union, and they organized millions of people in the country, and the purpose of what they did was to fight the oppression of the people who made their money raising and selling fruit, and they fought for better wages, and they fought for good working conditions, and they fought for not having hoodlums take them on during strikes. So this was Cesar Chavez, and on April 1st, it was declared that, well, in the United States, that that would be Cesar Chavez Day. And it just so happened that a short time before that, I'd seen an article in the Los Angeles Times about Miriam Powell, about the book she was writing about Cesar Chavez. One thing led to another, and we are going to have Miriam Powell talk about Cesar Chavez, and talk about her book at the library. That's May 28th at 7 o'clock. Parking is approved for 3 hours by parking at the parking structure across the street from the library. And this event is also going to be co-sponsored, and it is co-sponsored by the Glendale Latino Association.
Okay.
And I appreciate the extra seconds you've given me.
It was minutes.
I could talk for a half hour. And thank you very much. And I still have some bookmarks I'll give to anybody who wants them as I leave. Thank you again.
May 28th, 6 p.m., Central Library.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
7
And next, 7 p.m.?
Yes, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next speaker, Deborah Hyder for Hyasa Center. I hope I got your name correctly. I'm sorry.
Actually, it's Dr. Deborah Hayter.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor, and members of the council for allowing me to come and invite you to a special event on May 24th, and it's to honor the veterans, supported by the Hyasa Center. It's a nonprofit organization along with the Armenian American Music and Theatrical Society. Anybody who has worked or has worked in mental health know the struggles that the men in the armed forces have to endure. And some of these men are walking wounded, men and women. They've come back from war. We really would like to support them with a special musical, a special concert. We're going to have Scottish bagpipe players, maestro who is called the Black Liberace, and a barbershop choir. So we hope you will come out on May 24th. It's at the First Baptist Church here in Glendale. And if you'd like more information, you can go to hyasa.com. That's HYASA.com. Thank you. .org. Sorry. And we have flyers.
Oh, great. Feel free to pass them out. Yeah, pass them. Thank you, Ms. Hayter. And what's next, Mr. Clerk?
I'm trying to see if there's one more announcement. No? Not for empty bowls. Next item on the agenda is under adoption of ordinances, 7A, ordinance authorizing a development agreement by and between the City of Glendale and with PH Glendale LLC. This was offered on April 8th, 2014 by Councilmember Quintero.
Do we have a motion?
I will make the motion.
Second.
Yes, yes.
I wasn't here when this project was approved. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. For the city. When this project came in as a stage 1, I voted for it, but said then that I would not vote for it if I didn't feel the design was significantly improved, because I did not like the design at all. It's not that I'm against development on this site. I didn't like the design. Want to let you know that I looked at the redesign, and I still don't like it, so I'm going to vote against the project. I think we should expect better on Central.
Okay. Can we have roll call, please?
Council members: Friedman?
No.
Jarian?
No.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes. Next, please.
7B is ordinance authorizing execution of a development agreement by and between the City of Glendale and Glendale Mall Associates LP and Glendale 2 Mall Associates LLC pertaining to signage and advertising overlay zone. This was offered on April 8th, 2014 by Councilmember Quintero.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members: Friedman?
As I wasn't here for the discussion that week, I'm going to abstain.
Jarian?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes. Next item, please.
7C is ordinance authorizing the sale of surplus city-owned property embankment adjacent to 435 West Los Feliz pursuant to Glendale Municipal Code Chapter 4.52. This was brought forth on April 22nd, 2014 by Councilmember Weaver.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move the item.
I apologize. C1 is resolution authorizing execution of required documentation to accomplish conveyance of the property.
Okay, then I should do 8C first. Excuse me, 7C first.
Correct.
I'll second it.
Please.
Council members: Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
No.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes. Now C1.
Now move 7C1.
And I'll second that.
Roll call.
Council members: Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian?
No.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes. What's next?
Under action items, 8A is Director of Community Services and Parks and City Attorney regarding Commission on Status of Women's Self-Defense Class for Women and Girls. 8A1 is a motion providing direction to staff regarding City and Commission's annual sponsorship and funding.
Yes, Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think Ms. Alexani is going to give the staff report, and then I will address some of the legal issues that have been addressed from the group that wrote us the letter.
Thank you. Ms. Alexandrian.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Sinanian, members of the council, staff, and the community. My name is Teresa Alexanian, Executive Analyst with Community Services and Parks, also staff to the Commission on the Status of Women. Per council request, we will provide a report today regarding the self-defense classes for women and girls sponsored and funded by the Commission, and seek council direction on the classes going forward. Since 2008, the Commission has been sponsoring self-defense classes in April as part of Sexual Assault Awareness Month for women and girls in the community. The mission for the Commission providing sexual assault awareness is to help raise awareness through the proclamation and Denim Day, educate about sexual assault issues through panel discussions and events that we have, and to provide ways to prevent sexual assault. The self-defense classes are one way of teaching prevention by empowering the participants with the skills necessary to defend themselves should it be necessary. The goal for the classes are to provide training and information to the participants to help them avoid a situation and or to teach them skills that will help them fight against and get away from perpetrators if they are ever attacked. The statistics, based on the statistics of sexual assault, a higher percentage of women are victims of sexual assault in comparison to men. Based on Glendale Police Department stats, between 2011 and 2013, there were 134 female victims versus male victims in Glendale, so that's 88% female. Based on national surveys, 1 in 6 women are or have been victims of or of an attempted or completed rape, and 10% of sexual assault victims are men. The classes offered by the Commission have been provided in response to unique issues pertaining to gender-based violence and thus have been limited to women and girls in the past. The classes have been structured for women and girls for various reasons as recommended by the instructors, including a different set of skills are needed to teach women to defend themselves as they are attacked differently and for different reasons. Women have a different body structure, stronger in the lower body and weaker in the upper body. Women have 52% of men's upper body weight. Certain groups of women also simply can't tolerate having men in the class because they have been victims of sexual assault or rape, so they don't feel as comfortable being in a class with men. And the level of participation by women may be different because they don't feel as comfortable practicing certain techniques that are taught within the class. The Commission historically has offered 2 to 3 classes at various locations, whether it's at the Police Department, GCC, or at the Adult Recreation Center. This year, the Commission had scheduled 2 classes on April 9th and April 16th, one at the Police Community Room and one at GCC. Both classes were full, 160 unduplicated participants, and there were 70 unduplicated people on a waiting list. On average, about 106 people or women or girls benefit from the class. So historically, on average, there have been 106 participants. The classes have been provided by longtime Commission partners Shield Self-Defense, a martial arts-based women's self-defense founded by Nelson Neo, who is with us today in the audience, should Council have any questions. Mr. Neo is an advocate for women's safety and has been specializing in teaching self-defense and personal safety exclusively for women for the past several years. On March 17th, the city did receive a letter from the National Coalition for Men addressed to the city and the Commission and Mr. Neo, challenging the self-defense classes for women and girls. The letter alleges that the classes are discriminatory and violate the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution and California Constitution, the California Government Code section, and the California Civil Code section. The letter is asking the city and the Commission to treat boys and men, women and girls equally, and to open the classes up to everybody. The City Attorney's Office did direct staff to postpone the classes pending legal review, and our City Attorney, Mike Garcia, will provide a summary of the legal principles after my report. Staff is seeking council direction, notwithstanding the legal issues, whether the City Council is in support of the self-defense classes and would like the Commission to continue to offer them as is. If council's direction is to modify classes to open it up to both women and girls, whether the city would like to offer or provide a separate class for just men or to end sponsorship of the classes altogether. So there are four options that are presented in the staff report. Based on council direction, staff would also just like to note that Camp Rosie, which is a leadership skills camp that's offered and sponsored by the Commission in the summers, may be impacted as the camp is geared towards women, but it has been open to boys in the past. Just to note, we have not had any applicants, any boys apply for the camp, but it is a leadership skills camp that is offered to girls in the summer. And the camp covers, the curriculum includes financial literacy, body image, fitness and nutrition, self-defense, non-traditional careers, and healthy relationships. That concludes my report. If council has any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Alexandrian. Yes.
I have a question. Do we have any data, not anecdotal evidence, but actual data about whether, not necessarily this class, but this type of self-defense class, it's given one day, or is it a series
These specific classes are a one-day class, 2.5 hours.
So do we have any evidence as to whether a 2.5-hour self-defense class actually helps prevent attacks?
We have not done specific research, or at least myself have not done any specific research.
Well, I didn't expect us to do studies, but there must be some kind of studies out there about women's self-defense classes and whether they've, been effective. Because I'm sort of surprised that staff didn't look, because it's the obvious question here, beyond any legal issues. I mean, this is the kind of question that I said that we should be evaluating all of our programs. Every time we've done budgeting, I've said, any program we're spending money on, we should know whether it actually works. So do we know whether this works? I mean, there's two issues here for me, and I'm very adamant about one, and I'll make my point later about whether we should be offering separate programs for women and girls. But the other issue is whether a 2.5-hour class really makes a difference, because I don't know, maybe it does, but I took one of these classes once, and I tell you, I didn't feel like I was going to walk out and be able to defend myself if I was attacked necessarily. So I'm kind of curious.
Councilwoman Freeman.
Well, before you answer, let me say it's only a start. It doesn't keep women from taking other classes and continuing to, in addition to that, just the fact that we have 160 people waiting, or however long the waiting list is, I think that tells us that there's certainly a need, and I don't know.
Well, and I'm not saying that that's going to be a deciding factor for me, but I think it would be something that we should look at. I mean, are they going on and taking other classes after? Does this inspire people to do other classes? Do those classes make a difference? I mean, we should look into this. I mean, what is this actually doing?
Councilwoman Friedman, members of the council, I could say from personal experience, I haven't taken the class, but I have sat through at least 1 year of the class, and we do get a lot of positive feedback, and the women do say that this is really helpful and that they appreciate it, and I know some do proceed to take further classes if they are interested. And there are certain techniques that are taught in the class, and like I said, I haven't actually taken the class, but just being there and watching the techniques, I think personally, from a personal experience, I think that it would be helpful. But I can't say that we've gone out and surveyed or have done any research to verify or confirm that data. But
I mean, not to be argumentative, but someone saying it's helpful, you don't know whether it's helpful unless you've been attacked, unless you're attacked after you took the class. I mean,
what it isn't whether it's helpful or not really a subjective issue. It should be subjective. It should be helpful to the extent that anyone who's taken the class believes it's helpful, because I don't think that no one's expecting a girl come out of the class feeling like she's Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee, but they do come out feeling empowered and feeling like, well, maybe this is a route that I should pursue and maybe go take some special classes. I think no one's fooled to think that this is going to result in tangible physical results, but it is going to be a huge psychological effect on anyone who takes the class. But I'd like to hear the city attorney with respect to the legal aspect of this, and then we have many speakers on this issue, and maybe we can discuss the psychological versus tangible results after we hear from our speakers.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, if it pleases the council. Just with respect to Councilmember Friedman's question, I do believe there are studies out there. We don't have them handy, but when I was researching the legal issues, some of the legal journals that I came across referred to other journals that had some of the statistical information. So I believe there is information out there, and if that needs to be followed up, that's certainly something that we can do as a staff. With respect to this particular type of program that does distinguish between genders, it's called the gender-based classification under constitutional law. There generally is a burden on the government agency that's providing that program to justify it in some respect, either show that it's compelling, show that it meets some important governmental interest. And just looking at this before you kind of read all the cases, I think there are several important governmental justifications served by this. And Teresa went through a number of them, but I think, for example, the high prevalence of sexual assault against women compared to men is in of itself a compelling justification. The fact that there is quantifiably a need to teach different techniques to women than to men is, again, legally a compelling justification in of itself. We came across a case, for example, in Virginia, and that's not controlling here, but it gave the example of these types of statistics were sufficient to justify a woman's only self-defense class. It was deemed to be important enough And really, the court there said that really the only important statistic you need to look at is whether this particular type of class is going to be useful for the purpose for which you're putting it out there, which is to protect women, to allow women to protect themselves, to educate them about sexual assault issues. And if that's your bar, that's your public policy goal, then the government should have the right to provide that particular tool. So we looked at that. We looked at the cases both federally and state. And the only thing, and I've pointed this out to you previously, stated here, is that in California, there is a higher standard when looking at equal protection challenges to these types of programs that differentiate between men and women, where they look at it using strict scrutiny. Again, I still think, just my view is that that should be justified. There was a case that came down a few years ago dealing with domestic violence programs that were restricted to women only, and the court struck those down. And that case, that does present some problems. I would say that, if the council was of the view that they wanted to support this, and I think there are compelling justifications to do this, to keep it the way it is. However, I would say with that case, and given the fact that our cost to sort of remediate this situation, to provide a separate class, it's only $400 a year to provide those classes. The risk of losing a challenge versus just providing that separate class, I think the council should consider that and weigh that in making its decision. I will point out in case somebody does maybe feel there's maybe a separate but equal sort of flavor to that, I think the courts are amenable to these situations, especially when you can clearly identify with strong evidence that we have here that you really do need to provide. If you're going to provide these classes to men and to women, there's some significant benefits to providing them separately to women and to men. And with that, if you have any further questions, I think that's kind of the parameters of where the legal issues are.
Any questions for Mr. Garcia before we move on to our speakers? Okay, first speaker is Lisa Raggio. Can you limit it to 2 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Lisa Raggio, and I'm with the YWCA Glendale. For the sake of time, I will get straight to the point. I came here professionally and personally, and so I'd like to address your question. I was a recipient for 2 years of the self-defense classes, as well as my daughter and her 14 other soccer teammates for 2 years in a row. So I can tell you by being in the classes and an observant of all of those teenagers that equally compelling to what they learned when it came to physical skills, it was really, as our mayor addressed, psychological and behavioral. There is something compelling about being in that class and being taught by a man that it's important to say no, it's important to draw boundaries, and it's important to continue the self-image of being an empowered girl. And especially at that age, it's a significant age to be learning those things and to be incorporating them into your basic outlook. So in talking with the girls pre and talking with the girls post, in being a part of it, I could tell you that if there was boys or men included in that, it wouldn't have been successful. And then professionally speaking, there's data to support how programs like this for women and military women are significant and how they're making a difference in their reintegration. And we have been advised by our Deputy Secretary of Women Veterans Affairs that the first and foremost thing that we need to have for our military women is culturally competent services, and that they need to be gender specific. And there is research to support as well that when they are trained in this manner, it helps them in their previous trauma, in which there is significant data to support military sexual assault, 1 in 3, sexual harassment, 80%, childhood abuse, 35%, sexual assault pre-enlistment in the upper 19 to 20%, and so on. So there are sources that we're aware of that we could provide if you're looking for empirical evidence that have been providing this, so we'd be happy to support the Commission on that. I want to thank the City and the Commission on the Status of Women for what they've offered in the past to myself and my daughter and her teammates as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raggio. Next speaker is Michelle Roberts, followed by Denise Miller.
Hi, I'm Michelle Roberts. I'm the Executive Director of the YWCA of Glendale. I'm going to read my comments so I can get them in under 2 minutes. Usually I have to slow down. I've been at the YWCA in Glendale for 3 years, but I've been working in the fields of sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse prevention and intervention for over 25 years in California. I'm pleased to offer my comments, and they're both personal and professional tonight. Every year in April, we observe Sexual Assault Awareness Month. YWCA in Glendale has a long history of collaboration with the City of Glendale. We appreciate that, and the Commission on the Status of Women. We appreciate all the efforts that have been undertaken to prevent violence in this community and to educate and inform the public. The YWCA also has a 150-plus year history of advocating for peace, justice, dignity for all people, taking a stand against discrimination and violence against women, children, and men of all walks of life. Our dual mission is eliminating racism and empowering women. I'll synthesize some of the statistics because I think you've heard that. One of the things that is indisputable is that women and girls are disproportionately affected by sexual assault. Men are victims too, boys are victims as well, but disproportionately it's women and girls. About 80% of sexual assault victims are actually females under the age of 25 and at younger ages, unfortunately, as well. Lisa mentioned military sexual assault briefly. We've undertaken a new initiative on focus on female veterans, partly because of the prevalence of military sexual assault or military sexual trauma in this country. There is a lot of evidence, which we'd be happy to share later, about the impacts of sexual assault on individuals of all walks of life. It's pretty compelling. One of the things, not to disagree with our city attorney, with all due respect, what's often cited and quoted in some of these issues is the Woods versus Horton decision by the California Court of Appeals. And basically that case was around domestic violence shelters receiving government funding in California. What they ruled was that while shelters that receive government funding couldn't exclude male victims from services, as most didn't anyway, but they were not required to provide identical services. And I will quote directly from the decision. We do not require that such programs offer identical services to men and women. Given the noted disparity in numbers of women needing services and greater severity of their injuries, it may be appropriate to provide more and different services to battered women and their children. For example, a program might offer shelter for women and motel vouchers for men. I'd also like to thank the Commission on Status of Women for funding the Glendale Police Department motel voucher program for when shelter is unavailable in this city. There are motel vouchers available for all victims. So to sort of summarize, I think the principles of Woods versus Horton can apply in this situation as well. And sort of maybe to conclude, I'd also urge the city to consider the statement made by the president of the National Coalition for Men to CBS LA on April 15th, and I quote, "There's no problem with having self-defense classes geared toward women as long as they have the same self-defense classes geared toward men." So I'd urge the council to reconsider reinstating these classes, consider adding classes for men. Again, there is much empirical evidence citing the value of gender-specific services.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you.
Denise Miller, followed by Olivia Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor Sinanian, City Council, and staff. My name is Denise Miller, and I am the chair of the Commission on the Status of Women Glendale. I am here this evening to speak about our mission and our signature programs, and to request that Council keep these things in mind as you take all of these things under thoughtful consideration. Our mission provides a roadmap for our existence, so let's start with that. The purpose of the City of Glendale Commission on the Status of Women is to advance social justice and equity, and to ensure equality of rights and opportunities for all women and girls in Glendale by building new and strengthening existing bridges between the city's diverse groups, organizations, agencies, individuals. By increasing the level of knowledge in the community regarding women's issues and the status of women in our community, by encouraging and promoting participation, and by increasing the visibility of women in all spheres of their life, including home, work, and government. We live our mission by providing programs and events throughout the year. We make recommendations on policy that impact our mission to you directly for consideration and decision. Our purpose and reasoning for being is to focus on the needs of women. Our goal, simply stated, is to elevate the status of women and girls in all spheres of this life. We do this specifically by fundraising and providing signature events throughout the year. Free self-defense classes in April, scholarships for Camp Rosie, that's what we're raising funds for. And we also raise awareness about domestic violence in October. We partner with our community partners like the YWCA. We also offer a number of other educational programs and events throughout the year that are open to all genders. While we target all genders, our signature programs, like the ones I've emphasized above, are specific to the populations we serve and the missions that we know. We know that educating men about these important issues is another way to elevate the status of women, and we encourage that to happen. We also encourage at the same time that you remember the mission for which you created our commission and the mission for what we stand for, as well as why we raise funds. And we ask you to continue this in thoughtful consideration. Thank you.
Denise. Thank you. Olivia Rodriguez, followed by Nelson Neo.
Good evening. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for allocating time for us to speak on behalf of this worthwhile topic. The Los Angeles County Commission for Women was instrumental in helping the Glendale Commission for Women, Status of Women, to be established here in Glendale. We're still proud to be continued partners with them in the projects that they provide for women and for individuals in the community that are interested in participating in. The Los Angeles County Commission for Women, while does not do specific studies for sexual assault, we have done some studies for domestic violence, and we have not had any individuals in the studies that we did 10 years ago, men that said that they were assaulted. I did research from the Sheriff's Department, and in 2013, there were 437 rapes that were reported to the county, and that's only the ones that are reported. As all of us know, the colleges are now being mandated to have sexual assault awareness, sexual assault policies, so this is an issue that's pertinent to women. I did further research to see if there were stats on male victims, and I only found one, and that was in the county jails, and that was male-to-male rape. So I didn't find any female rapes. Although there have been some in the media, I didn't find any in our statistical data. In approximately 8 years ago, Vice President of the National Coalition for Men, Attorney Mark Angelucci, brought a lawsuit against the Commission for Women, the Office of Women's Health, and also the Commission for Women, stating similar grounds, discrimination. Fortunately, they lost that lawsuit. I urge you to continue these programs for women and girls so they can defend themselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And last speaker is Nelson Neo.
Mayor, council member, my name is Nelson Neo with Shield Women Self-Defense. I just want to say that these self-defense classes, they're not regular self-defense classes like boxing or karate or something. Women are not, they don't exchange punches with a guy. They're usually grabbed in and pulled. So the stuff that we do in class, it's very specific for women's sexual assault incidents. And to answer your question about the studies, I'm not aware of any studies out there. Even if you've seen it without practicing it, it makes a huge difference than if you've never seen it at all. Because if you, when someone attacks you and your brain is trying to search for information on how to respond and you have nothing, you just freeze. One of my students was attacked in Santa Monica while exercising up and down the stairs. Someone grabbed her from behind, put her in a van, and raped her there. I mean, when she was grabbed, she just froze. She didn't know what to do. So stuff like this, even if it's really good to practice it, but even just to see it, it's very helpful. And the thing is, the more trained you are, the less likely you'll be attacked. So it's hard to improve.
Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Go ahead, please.
Okay, if you had a class for men, what would you teach them? Pull them in close?
Yeah, separate. Totally separate.
Totally different kind of program.
Yeah, because for men, you mostly fight for ego.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and then you fight, you punch or you kick. But for women, you need to use your lower body.
So how could you mix? You couldn't mix the two together.
You could,
man
but
and
it's
a
not
woman.
very effective.
I would say
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Because, especially for survivors and stuff, they can't really participate with the guy. Yeah. And also, the classes that we have, it's all lower body driven. So it's not punching like this, it's all from here in. Okay? Your upper body is totally relaxed. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Thank you.
Let's have it. Okay, yes. Ms. Friedman? Oh, do you?
So, first of all, in terms of any efficacy issues, I don't think it's a question for today, but I would agree that there probably are studies that validate these types of classes. I don't know. But if you've seen them out there, we should have them. We should be proud of them. We should show them. It should be on the WISE website when they talk about the class, all of that. But if they don't work, maybe making girls feel better and feel more empowered is a good goal, is a worthy enough goal. It's not the stated goal of this class, unless it's to get people to say no. I don't know. But we should know whether these classes in general work and whether this class works. We should know that with any program. I mean, it's one thing to feel good about it, but, is it really stopping, helping women to say no? Is it really helping them to stop attacks? We should know. If not, is it possible to retool it so it does? We should look at that data, because we want this to be if we're going to do this, it should be the best program it can. Nelson, I think your name was. Sorry, I forgot your last name. He seems great. I'd take a class from him. I'm sure he could teach me a lot. But, what's he teaching? What's out there? What's been proven effective? What's not? We should, or the why, someone should really look at that, because just because it feels good, it may not be the best that there is. And I'm not picking on this program. I've been saying this for every program that comes in front of us, that we need to know, if we're putting resources into it, what's working, and we should be able to show the public, some return. Okay, let's put that aside, because that's sort of a separate issue in my mind. It just would have been nice to have that data today, since we're talking about the class. Look, in terms of these kinds of programs, clearly this is an issue in which women are overrepresented, sexual assaults, this kind of physical assault. And from what I've been reading, and I'm not an expert, it's certainly gotten worse. It's prevalent in the military, we're finding out. It's epidemic on college campuses for possibly a variety of reasons. But it's disproportionately affecting women, and they're the ones that need these services. And as we heard, the class would be different. Now, whether we offer something to men, $400 a year, it's not a big deal. I'm fine with it. Maybe for some men, it could, help prevent just other kinds of attacks, not necessarily sexual attacks, but robberies, assaults, that kind of thing. I'm fine with that. But putting this aside, and let's talk about Camp Rosie for a minute, because that was brought up. I will fight to the death for Camp Rosie. I mean, we live in a world where girls are disadvantaged in the workplace, and women are disadvantaged in the workplace. They earn less money than men. Women tend to be in larger groups in poverty. A lot of women do not learn financial literacy. We know that a lot of girls don't feel that they can go into politics, be astronauts, do all kinds of things that are open to women today. I know, here's anecdotal evidence, but I participated in Camp Rosie, and I can tell you that a lot of those girls, I believe if they were in groups with men, would not develop that confidence through this to really come out, to really be as active a member of that group as they are when they're amongst their peers. I think maybe men don't have that experience, but I can tell you, having been a girl once, it can be intimidating to be in a classroom with men and to be empowered maybe by an instructor or by your peers to feel that you can speak up. And I think that there is a lot of evidence that girls who are taken out of that situation and put into girl-only groups learn to have that confidence and learn to be assertive. And then when they go back into groups with men or with boys, they carry that newfound confidence with them. I would also think that we should do metrics on Camp Rosie. We should follow those girls. We should see how many of them go to college and what happens to them later so that we can tweak and improve the program. So we don't have that data, and I said it in the past, I think we should. But I've just seen from participating in Camp Rosie a group of girls that were identified by their instructors as needing extra help come out of that thinking, my goodness, I can own a car dealership, I can be a mayor, I have all of these avenues open to me, and these people were like me once. They're not, a different breed. They were once girls that maybe weren't advantaged, that maybe had issues to overcome. So we do something similar for boys, maybe we do, but I don't see the evidence that boys need it. They're running all the corporations, they're running the country. I think it's the girls that need that help. So I will, like I said, fight to Camp Rosie for the death. If we want to do self-defense classes for boys and men for $400 a year, I have no problem with that.
Yes, Mr. Najarian.
Thank you. I was the one who asked for this to come forward. After reading the letter by the gentleman from the men's organization, it became clear to me that as it was currently constituted, the classes which are for women only and eliminate men were unlawful and unconstitutional. And that's basically what the city attorney stated. I do not want to end the classes for the women and the girls, but I do think men and boys need classes too. Now, in terms of who has more sexual assaults, maybe an assault with the intended result of a rape, perhaps women, yes, by a large margin. But in terms of getting beat up, mugged, hit on the head, bullied, having your lunch money stolen, I think if you factor in those type of assaults, the numbers start to even out.
By other boys, though, right?
By other boys. Oh, no, I'm not saying by women, by other boys. The editor of our newspaper was mugged last year. I think he could have certainly benefited. And the court's analysis in the Woods case says you can't look at those numbers. It may be just a small fraction of men that are victims of domestic violence. You can't exclude them nonetheless. So I'm wholeheartedly support a dual program, and I respect the position that boys and men in these classes would somehow intimidate or make them less valuable to the girls and women that attend. I'm fine with that. I think we should set up at low cost a parallel program for boys and men. As far as Camp Rosie goes, I think since it was brought up, I think we're running into trouble there. First of all, there seems to be, it's no surprise to me that no boy or man is going to sign up for a camp called Camp Rosie. It sort of implies that it's a camp for women and girls. But to imply that men are these great, let's see, you talked about self-esteem. I think more men commit suicide than women. You talk about healthy eating. I think men have a much higher rate of heart attacks, strokes, and diabetes than women. Men certainly could use some tips on healthy eating. When we talk about financial acumen, I guarantee you that more men declare bankruptcy in this country than women. So let's just not make these broad generalizations that it's only women that need help. I think both sexes need help. And for us to go down this road and say this gender is one way, this gender is another way, is what we're trying to stop happening in our society today. We should be equal and provide equal services for everyone. Our public schools are co-ed. There's no reason why some of these classes can't be co-ed, like Camp Rosie. Alcoholism, drug abuse. Is there any doubt that men suffer from these afflictions at a much, much higher rate than women? Should we have only our alcohol classes, AA, only for men? Should we have Narcotics Anonymous classes only for men? Of course we shouldn't. We should have it open to everyone without regard to their gender. On this particular case, for the defense classes, I know we're going in the right direction. Keep the Commission of Status of Women sponsored classes. and let's get a couple of classes, equal time, equal quality for the boys and men.
Mr. Quintero, before you start your comments, I want to ask our city attorney, was that a correct characterization that is your opinion, that you agree with the gentleman who wrote the letter, that these classes as they stand now are somehow unconstitutional?
Well, no. First of all, I think with the way I read the letter, that person was saying the classes should be integrated, and to that extent, I don't agree with that at all. Okay. But I think to the question of whether it's likely unconstitutional, it's hard to say because there isn't a lot of case law here. I think we're talking about the Woods case, and the speaker from the YWCA actually brought up a good point that case did specifically say you don't have to provide exactly the same type of program, especially where you can identify the need, but you have to provide if a men as a protected class can show that they're entitled to, that they can benefit from this program, then you need to provide something to them. And to that extent, I would point out, for example, we can provide a class and see how much with the classes we have now. We have 80 women or girls signing up for each class with the waiting list. There's a high demand. I don't believe we're by law required to provide 2 classes for men if only 15 men sign up. That's what I think. So what I should say, there's risk associated with only providing the women's only class. And from my viewpoint, it's a risk that the council should consider avoiding, since the cost to sort of remediate that is relatively small.
Thank you. Mr. Quintero?
The National Coalition for Men. That's an organization that this country's needed for hundreds of years. If you look back at American history, men have really had a difficult time in this country. They've been taken advantage of by the other gender. Oh, brother, I can't imagine what this coalition must be about. But anyway, it led us to this evening, and I am absolutely convinced that the classes have to be done for women and young girls alone. I don't think there's the master that's teaching it obviously agrees. There's no way that you should do a self-defense class cross-gender. It just doesn't make any sense. Physically, I think there's a difference, as well as what some of the spokesmen from the spokespersons from the YWCA mentioned in terms of psychological, social issues, etc. So for sure, we need to continue with the classes. I think they've been great. It was a wonderful idea to do it. And Ms. Raggio mentioned the armed services, the kind of issues that have taken place in the armed services since the full integration of women took place. And if we have to provide a separate class, and I'm all for it, we can try one class, see if there's any interest, and that'll absolve us from any further lawsuits. But all in all, I think this National Coalition for Men is a joke, quite frankly. But nowadays, if you have a law degree or an attorney that's willing to file, you can do lots of things in this country.
Ms. Friedman has a question.
I just have a quick question for staff. Who's paying for these classes right now? Who's sponsoring them? Is it the city or is it the commission? Is the commission raising money?
All $400.
Councilwoman Friedman, it's the Commission on the Status of Women that's currently paying for the classes.
And they fundraise?
They fundraise.
So why is this our decision, number one? And does this fall under the same, do they have the same kind of?
I think that it's a good question. The constitutional issues are the same regardless of whether it's the commission that raised funds separately, because it's still part of the city. So from that perspective, they're considered a state actor for purposes of the constitutional analysis. And then, yeah, it is our problem in the sense of if we want to pay for the classes as sort of the fix to this, then it has to come from the city. It's certainly up to the council how that comes, but I mean.
So they're raising money for women's self-defense class, but we're going to fund a men's self-defense class out of the general fund. Or find a way to fundraise for it. That doesn't sound very fair to me. It doesn't sound very equal to me.
It doesn't, but again, I think that given the fact that the cost to sort of address this issue is relatively minor, I think it's something the council should consider.
It was more of a rhetorical statement.
Understood. And it's a good point. I mean, I think a strong argument can be made that this shouldn't be the city's burden, especially if it turns out that the actual demand for a separate class is low. But the law, at least that Woods case, seems to suggest you've got to provide some sort of benefit that can be utilized by men.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver?
Yeah, I'll kind of lead into a couple points. When I've talked before last year a lot about what social media is doing to everybody nowadays, anywhere you live in the world. Social media, it allows people like National Coalition for Men, who I didn't even know existed, that's in some other city, to get on our website or something and find about classes for women's self-defense and write a letter and say it's unconstitutional. Why they had to butt into this city, maybe they're attacking another city now, who knows where they are. And I didn't know we needed a coalition for men. Frank, we'll have to find out what the heck they are. I should have got on the website and see how they can help us guys. But having said that, look, we've had national media come in here. We've had problems with the circus elephant. We've had trouble with PETA coming in. We've had the guns lobbies come in, all reading what we do in our little city and told us, you're doing wrong. No, I don't know why. We can't be left alone to do our thing. I never thought that something like this would surface. Measuring, I thought of another thing that I assume there's some statistics to prove it, but we're all told to take CPR. Now, I don't know if they got statistics on how many people have taken CPR and then gone out there and saved lives. Maybe there are statistics, but that doesn't matter to me at all. I do know one statistic: you can turn on the TV every week and you can find women being assaulted and killed. Men too, but a lot of women. And taking the classes, it's self-confidence. They at least know something, and they'll retain it, which I think is positive. I do not see mixing the classes. I don't know why a guy would want to be in the same class anyhow. What motivation is to him to be on there? I don't get it. I think there ought to be more classes for the self-defense, since you have a waiting list for the women. Gosh, if we can't found, well, if the Commission Status Women's putting up $800 a year, why the city can't match that? If we can't find $1,000 out of the general fund or whatever to put on a male class, if there are any, and a couple more women's classes, since the demand is there, I don't know why we can't do that. These are important things. I have 3 granddaughters, and they're all going to take self-defense classes if I had anything to say about it as they get older. Teenagers, everybody, girls walking down the street, they're told to walk in pairs, don't walk alone. Some guy might jump out of a van and grab you. They need to know some kind of self-defense. So for the coalition on status of men, or National Coalition for Men, to try to come in and stop something like that, I just find it egregious. I don't like it at all. So I'm fully supportive of continuing, and I'm sure we can find a sponsor or sponsors or $1,000 general funded to satisfy the needs of all the women that want it, young and old. Same with Camp Rosie. I mean, I never thought I'd hear the day the men would come and complain. We're not in. We want to be in that class too. Gee, I can think of a lot of other organizations that are male only out there. I haven't heard women coming in and say, we want in the men's. It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I'm fully in support of it, and if it helps us keep us out of a constitutional issue by providing one class for the men, and I'd like to know how many sign up for that, I'm all for it. Let's see where it goes. If no guys come in, we can cancel the class. At least we made an effort. So I wish the National Coalition for Men the best. I'm going to look them up tomorrow on the internet and find what they are. Google them.
Okay, thank you. So there's some pretty broad issues that were discussed here, and I'll start with the broad issue and then narrow it down to the actual class that gives rise to today's item on the agenda. We all know why we have Camp Rosie. We have Camp Rosie for the same reason that we have the Commission on Status of Women. Because today, in the 21st century, in 2014, women are still treated unfairly. They face huge amount of unfairness and prejudice out there in the real world. We have colleges that are producing overall, I think, 55% or more college graduates are females today. But if you look at the corporate world, you look at the government, overwhelming majority are still men. So, and anyone, come on, any one of us who loves their wife, mother, sister, knows many stories, many experiences where women are being unfairly treated because of their gender. Before we even get into issues like rape, which is the very extreme version of the bad things that are happening to them. So, what kind of things does Camp Rosie teach our girls, right? Let's think about this. I mean, they teach financial responsibility. Does that mean that they come out and they go to Wall Street and they're financiers? I mean, there's a program called Rosie Goes to Wall Street, but that's obviously not the result that we get. What we do through Camp Rosie is instill that sense of, we plant the seeds of financial responsibility or the basic skills associated with being financially literate. We don't expect them to become immediately financiers. Same thing with this class. You instill the idea that, listen, you can defend yourselves, and here are some fundamental things that you can do to defend yourselves. And after that, they hopefully grab onto the idea of being of self-worth, of being worthy and being able to defend themselves. As far as the comparisons to alcoholism, I think we're missing a fundamental point. The self-defense that this class is meant to teach is specifically self-defense against men. Against men. It's not against other women. So alcoholism classes can't be gender segregated, because it's not one gender or the other that's causing the alcoholism. We're all prone to alcoholism. It happens to all genders. So it's not a good comparison. Same with males being assaulted by other males. I mean, sure, there's bullying out there. Men are more likely to be attacked and beaten up than women, but by other men. It's not by other women. So this class teaches, it's about self-defense against men. So that's why it's for women only. If we have a need for, and we probably do, something to think about, classes against bullying. Let's be honest and say, bullying goes on in our schools. Let's set up a class for, but it would be for everyone. It wouldn't be just because girls are bullied also. So let's set up a mixed gender class and teach our kids self-defense against bullying. That would make sense. But now we're saying, oh, well, why do the girls get to learn self-defense for 2.5 hours and the boys don't? It's just, I don't know, it's tit for tat, it's childish. I don't see what policy it serves. So I agree with Councilman Quintero. I think the class is being offered, it's being offered for a legitimate reason. There's absolutely no discriminatory intent. I don't think there's discriminatory impact. But to the extent that this is going to make it more palatable legally, and it's necessary to offer a class for boys, again, let's call it the anti-bullying class and offer it for boys too. But this class should be kept separate for girls only. Yes, Mr. Quintero.
Unless there's more comments, I'll make the motion. Okay, I'm at 8AA. I move that the council direct staff to continue to sponsor and fund self-defense classes for women and girls only, and then to provide a separate class for men only.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes. Next.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
8B is City Attorney. This was continued from April 8th, 2014, regarding denial and findings of Design Review Board case number PDR 1308302 for property located at 2631 Hermosa Drive. P1 is motion reversing the Design Review Board's decision of approval denying the design review case and making findings.
I'll move the item.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Roll call. Councilmembers Friedman.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
No.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes. What's next?
Next item is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to their appropriate department for investigation and report.
And we have no speaking cards tonight.
Really?
Close it.
Jeez.
Believe it.
I move we adjourn.
No.
There's new business.
No, there's new business. Yes. Let's take care of new business. Yes, Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, I hope I get these names right. I move that the city attorney be and hereby is authorized to enter into retainer agreements with the law firms of 1. Lister, Martin, and Thompson, LLP, 2. Wall, McCormick, Brody, Green, and Dugan, 3. The Ivy Law Firm, 4. Perlman, Borska, and Wax, LLP, 5. Nakamoto Chu, 6. Malmquist, Fields, and Camastra, 7. Jacobs and Associates, and 8. Grancelli, Stander, Rubens, Thomas, and Kinsey to provide legal services to the City of Glendale on an as-needed basis pertaining to litigated workers' compensation claims. The agreement shall, in addition to other provisions, contain a fee cap for providing the legal services outlined above.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Friedman.
Here. Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes. What's next?
I have a motion, and I move that pursuant to Article 8, Section 1, City Charter and Government Code Section 54957.1A5, the Council hereby approves the City Attorney's appointment of Yvette Nukian as Assistant City Attorney, and further, that a written copy of this motion shall be transcribed, certified, and delivered by the City Clerk to the Office of the Civil Service Commission of the City of Glendale as the written statement required by Article 24, Section 5, Subsection 2 of the Charter.
Do we have a second? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Friedman.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Mayor Sinanian.
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.